It's the Wait a Minute Show.
Bruh. Ain't that right, Lopan? Wait a minute. Book it. Really? Really?
The Wait a Minute Show with your host, Jolani J.B. Bodie.
Ladies and gentlemen, what is up? It is your man, Jelani J.B. Bodie, host of this thing called The Wait a Minute Show. Actually, The Wait a Minute Sports Show, right? Sports. I got to make sure I mention that. So, welcome, and hopefully you're ready for some sports talk. Yep. We got a bunch of stuff we're going to get to. I know. It's crazy, but it's a big story. Trey Lance headed to the Dallas Cowboys. Wow. We're going to be talking about that. Some documentaries that was out there that I saw. Swamp Kings has been a big talk between people. Actually, this BS High, I really got some stuff I really want to say about this BS High. So if you haven't seen it, you want to check it out, among other things. But ladies and gentlemen, I'm just going to get into it. But Lopan is here. Yeah, what's up, Lopan? Yeah, get out of here. We don't want to hear anything you got to say. I really want to get into it's Saturday, ladies and gentlemen. It is August 26th, ladies and gentlemen. What's the significance of that? You smell it? Do you smell it? Ladies and gentlemen, college football is here. It has arrived. It is upon us. We will have college football today. This Saturday going on. We got two games that's slated. The first one that's going to kick off is going to be Notre Dame against Navy, and they're in Ireland. So you know it's crazy over there. It's bananas. And later on in the day, we're going to have USC take on San Jose State. So we're going to get a real quick view and up close and personal look at Caleb Williams and see what he's all about this year, the reigning Heisman Trophy winner. So, but we got those games, but we got a bunch of other stuff that is on the table, and that's just the entire season, right? So let's get into talking about some of the stuff that's going to be highlighted. Obviously, the one thing to remember that this is going to be the last year where it's 4 teams that's in the college football playoff. It's going to go up to, I think, 12, if I remember right, Lopan. Indeed. Right. I thought it should go to 8, but that's just my humble opinion, but they're going up to 12 next year. So this is going to be the last one where we have 4 teams that's going to make the playoffs. So this is going to be critical for a lot of teams. And we got teams that we can talk about all day. We don't have all day to talk about them, but Georgia. Can Georgia go back and repeat 3 times? That's going to be tough. That's going to be tough. And I'm going to tell you right now, I don't know Georgia winning the national championship this year. There is something to be said about replacing your quarterback. It's been done before. Don't get me wrong. But Stetson Bennett, did play a big role in in those 2 years at Georgia. So you're getting a quarterback to replace him, but it's more about the competition that's going to be out there for Georgia that they're going to have to, see. The other one is Alabama. Let's just be honest, right? Alabama had some late steam going into the final parts of last year. They tried to champion themselves. Nick Saban was out there, trying to do everything he could to get his team into the playoffs, and for good reason why, but they didn't need to be in it. They lost some games and everything, so they paid the price, as they should. But I get why Nick Saban was, because Alabama, everybody would have been scared to play Alabama. Alabama would have been a problem if they had got into the college football playoff. But now, having that, we already know. Nick Saban is going to create this revenge tour. They kept us out. We got something to prove. They didn't believe in y'all. They said y'all weren't good enough. All this. So Alabama is going to, be a problem. They're always a problem, but they're going to be even a problem because they're going to have even more of a chip that's on their shoulders. My Michigan Wolverines, Jim Harbaugh serving a 3-game suspension that was given out by the University of Michigan. I really don't think that's really going to hurt them at all because their first 3 games, as people call them, are cupcake games. Now, you can't take it lightly, but I just do think that Michigan has enough talent to get through these 3 games without Jim Harbaugh. But Michigan, they were in the playoff, got embarrassed. My team got embarrassed by TCU. So coming back, the one thing that they're going to have that they didn't have in that playoff is Blake Corum, right? So you got Corum and Edwards as this duo in the backfield. McCarthy is a year older, year mature. He played well. I expect, higher things and bigger things, from him. Michigan is going to run out there with that power run offense, but also they got some weapons on the outside, but the defense is where they lay their hat as well. So you got to look at Michigan. You got Clemson that's out there that you're going to have to take serious. You got LSU that's out there that you're going to have to take serious. And yes, it's a rivalry, and it don't taste right saying it, but Ohio State, you're going to have to worry about them as well. They got in to the playoffs. Some people will feel that they, backed in, but I think Ohio State deserved to be in the playoffs, but they're going to be looking at a redemption as well. Marvin Harrison Jr., let me get that right. Marvin Harrison Jr., he's going to, be a problem this year. So it's going to be real interesting to see, what Ohio State does all year. USC, I just talked about them. Look, USC could have stamped their own ticket to the playoff last year, and they didn't. They came up short, a game that they needed to have. They didn't, they didn't win that game. So this is another redemption or revenge tour, for USC. And that's just a few. But it's always going to be who's that team that's going to come out and shock everybody, just like TCU did last year. Is there a team that can do that? Or will it really be just a top 4, from the Power 5 conference, and we're going to be going chalk here? All that will be determined. All that will be decided as these upcoming weeks happen. So obviously, you know who I'm rooting for. I'm rooting for the Michigan Wolverines, but there's a lot of competition that's out there when it comes to college football. But I'm glad to see it here. I'm glad it's in the air. Like I said, we're kicking it off with Notre Dame against Navy. That's going to be an excellent game, I think, and USC versus San Jose State. And then we'll start getting the regular games after that. So college football, it's going to be too much. It's going to be a lot. Indeed. And speaking of a lot, make sure if you haven't already, you saw the subscribe, that popped up there. Hey, make sure a lot of you are subscribing to the channel as well. Turn on those notifications, man. Share this with anyone and everyone that you know to come in here and talk about sports, so you get notified every time the show. We do a show every week, so NFL, NBA, boxing, golf, whatever is going on, at that particular time, your man Jelani JB Bodie will be talking about it. But make sure you're subscribing to the channel and you share that out there. So, shameless plug. Indeed. You didn't have to agree with me, Lopan, but let's move on from there. So, Trey Lance, right? Trey flipping Lance. He has been traded to the Dallas Cowboys, ladies and gentlemen. So the former number 3 overall pick by the San Francisco 49ers was traded to Dallas for a 4th round pick, I think for next year, 2024. So now this is, the talk of it was Trey able to get his starting gig back? As the preseason went on, we kind of saw, that he wasn't going to be able to get it back from Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy did an excellent job in filling in after him and Jimmy Garoppolo went down, after Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo went down. So it was going to be hard just to, unseat Brock Purdy at this point. But he lost the backup job to Sam Darnold, at which it's been reported that Trey had a talk with Kyle Shanahan, head coach of the San Francisco 49ers, and requested a trade. So I'm a little shocked that the 49ers did actually trade him. I thought they would try and keep him for another year. They did want to keep him, and they could have kept him. They could have just said, you know what, Trey? Yeah, that's fine, but no, we're not going to do it. Especially, here's the thing, especially what happened last year. That's how Brock ended up playing because everybody got hurt. And then Brock gets hurt in the NFC Championship game. And then Josh Johnson, he ended up getting hurt. And then Christian McCaffrey is the quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers. So just that alone, I thought that they would keep, Trey. But then also you have this thing that people are pointing out, deservedly so, that they traded 3 first-round picks to move up to get Trey Lance. And now you've moved on from him. And they were never going to get what they traded up for unless he turned into Pat Mahomes, which they wouldn't have traded him if he turned into Pat Mahomes. So that's neither here nor there. They weren't going to, get it back. I just think him, them trading him and not keeping him around. Me, myself, I would have said, Trey, I'm sorry. You gotta stay, right? But it makes me think like they were probably going to trade him next year. And if they were going to trade him next year, if he sits there the whole time and in fact, he does be the third quarterback throughout the entire season, yeah, they wouldn't have received a 4th-round pick. They were surprised to get a 4th-round pick at this point because it was reported that the Bills, my Lions, and the Ravens were all interested in Trey Lance. And it was reported that out there, they were looking at like a 6th-round pick, maybe that turned into a 5th, and then the Dallas Cowboys step in and they take Trey Lance with a 4th-round pick, or they trade for Trey Lance with a 4th-round pick. So that opens up the question, for Cowboy fans, and somebody won't be there in Dallas because there's Cooper Rush, Will Greer, now Trey Lance, and then, of course, Dak. Dak's not going anywhere. Dak's going to get an extension. We know Jerry Jones and the rest of the Cowboys organization love Dak, so nothing is going to happen with Dak. But what is available for Trey, right? Now, in practice, he's going to get, some reps where he wouldn't get them at all being the third quarterback. And I think this is just maybe a short game. Say, I go to Dallas. Hey, they big up me. If I keep the backup position, there's still going to be somebody that's going to be interested in me. All right now. He still had someone interested in him, even though, hey, he only played, 8 games? I think 6 or 8 games due to injuries and, a rookie season and everything else that plays part. Jimmy Garoppolo was, starting, for that team. I got to give credit. I'm going to give credit where credit is due, right? I don't always like doing this, but, I do another show on Sundays at 9 a.m., Wrap It Up Sports as well, panel with Jay Fish, right? Fish, he was talking about, trading him to get something for him, now instead of later. And he was right. That's what they did. Get something now. But then he also was talking about how, another team will be like, hey, you know what? I can not necessarily fix Trey Lance. There's nothing fixed with Trey Lance, but I could work with Trey Lance. I like that talent. Let me see what I can do with it. So it does seem like maybe that's what they're trying to do. And if there's anybody that can hype up a quarterback, it's going to be the Dallas Cowboys. They hype him up. Hey, if he does have to step in and if he does well and back up Dak Prescott, then now we're right back talking about, oh, trade this, trade that, but he still gotta prove it. So him being traded did come across as a shocker to me, but what were they gonna do? So the only other thing I think, who's the general manager? Why John Lynch? John Lynch, said that they, as a team, we have to accept that or, own that. And he's absolutely right that they do. When you make those type of moves and it doesn't work out, and that quarterback that was supposed to be like, what amazing what a year does. That was your starting quarterback, saying he was better than Jimmy Garoppolo and better than anybody else on that team, even though Brock Purdy was on that team. Now saying, hey, we're moving on from it. And I think the one thing, not one thing, multiple things though, but the thing that helps ease this in San Francisco, where 49er fans are going to be upset, but that it's just not, them going down to headquarters, is the success that they've had, right? And what John Lynch was able to put together, because they got Bosa, they got Debo, they made the trade for McCaffrey, they got Brock Purdy. So it's a lot of good pieces that's there in San Francisco. So 49er fans are going to be mad, but it's more like, you know what? all right, I'm gonna let this. I ain't gonna forget, but I'm gonna let this slide a little bit because they're still in contention to go to the Super Bowl. So at the end of the day, mission accomplished for the San Francisco 49ers. They got a 4th round pick for a guy that was going to be the 3rd option on a team. So that's amazing in itself. Indeed. All right, Lopan. So I wish Trey well. I hope everything works out for everybody. Trey Lance somewhere else, and then he proves why he should have been a number 3 overall pick. So now let's move on and let's get into. I'm going to go a little bit back to college, but not actually any games, but a Netflix special. If you saw this, the Florida Gators from what was that, 06 to 09, maybe 05 to 09, on this Netflix, it was called Swamp Kings. So this followed around some of the former Florida Gators that played on that national championship team where they won 2 championships in 3 years. And you had guys like Urban Meyer was on there. Tebow was on there. Brandon Spikes was on there. Chris Rainey was on there. A few other guys. And they just chronicled through how those years while they were there, how things transpired and how things happened. And I enjoyed watching it. I found out some things. You saw Cam Newton, you saw some cameos of Cam Newton. I learned some things, but I got some questions, on it. I got some questions, Lopan. Indeed. Yeah, I got some questions. And I'm trying to figure out. I don't have a problem with, who was there. Major Wright, I think Ahmad Black, I don't have a problem with there. But I'm wondering why Cam Newton wasn't, on there. He was there for a time period. Why wasn't Chris Leak on there? He was the quarterback before Tebow showed up. Pouncey twins, did they decline or I would have been interested just to get their view or their opinion about certain things that happened during that season. But there was a lot of items that went through there. I found out about Urban Meyer and what he went through. Now watching all of that just goes even further to what I've been talking about, which they are now. But as far as paying these athletes, I'm not going to, go on a tangent, about that. But if you see that and what they were putting themselves through and what Urban Meyer was putting them through, the responsibility that they had. I mean, you see guys that was out there hurt, that was still playing. You see guys that they were having these midnight workouts and everything. That sounds like a job to me. Just a little bit. That ain't just we go to class and then we go to practice for an hour or something like that, and then we just go and finish studying and everything. That was a strong commitment to this team. And yeah, I think I think this gives you an insight. You see why they're saying, hey man, I think, what we're doing, you saw the audit, the team, not the fans and everything. As far Florida made a lot of money off of those few years that they were there. So I'm going to get off that. But if you haven't already, watch it. It's informational. You get answers probably to some questions that you had. You find out some things that you didn't. The last thing I'll say, I didn't get Tebow, right? And I've defended Tebow a lot. I'm not even a Gator fan, obviously, but for the people that just go after Tebow and everything about him because, they don't like it because he's clean cut and all that, I did defend Tebow out there a lot during his tenure when he was in the NFL and, a little bit in college. But it was I didn't understand. He was like, it was like he talked about pressure every episode because it's like 4 episodes, but it was like he was repeating himself, and then the way he was saying it, he was like, and it was pressure, and I was like, why is Tebow whispering into the mic? But I just had to get on Tebow just a little bit, but it's really good, and you find out a little bit more about Tebow as well. But check it out. Another thing that you want to check out. We talked about college, and we're going to talk about and you're watching the Wait a Minute Sports Show, is high school football. So that's another thing that Friday nights It's crazy. We already know, especially here in the South, Friday nights is crazy during football season. And HBO ran a documentary this past week called BS High, right? BS High. When I first saw it, I was thinking of some letters, and I'm like, I'm not going to say it on here. But then I was like, oh, yeah, Bishop Sycamore. So if you don't know about this, I'll just tell you about it a little bit. It's just basically there's a team that this guy puts together, Roy Johnson, and he puts a football team together to play high school football, but they're not a school. Like, they're just a football team, right? So you got to watch all of it, but it was, in some instances, it was sad, right? Because for me, watching it, it's what these kids had to go through, what these kids were challenged with. There wasn't the best guidance or direction, and to me, it was just a cluster of just lies, deceit, and to watch this and the explanation that's given. And it seems like it's trying to be justified. I was just like, wow. And then also, how is someone able to put together a football team, say that they're a high school, and nobody looks into it? Nobody. And it's not like they just popped up. We're talking about Ohio, in the state of Ohio. Football, we're talking about here in the South. Football is important in the state of Ohio as well. And you mean to tell me nobody asked any questions? Now, they were forewarned by an individual, and I forget his name, but nobody wanted to investigate it until they popped up on ESPN. And then they got blasted. These kids got embarrassed by IMG Academy. So it's a lot of questions that's involved in this, and just loopholes, gray areas. How is this possible? Why would you do this? You got questions, that you could ask the parents. You got if you haven't watched it, watch it. But it was crazy to get to that level. I mean, it was literally like, to me, now, obviously there was more, involved in it, but to me, it was me leaving right now. I go down the street, find some kids, and say, hey, y'all want to play football? And they're like, yeah. And then somehow, some way, I get a game with the top football, top ranked football team in America. And then somehow I get on ESPN. How is that possible?
Indeed.
I don't know. And last thing, they even had kids on this team, and young men, I should say. They even had young men who had already graduated high school. Watch it. That's all I'm telling you. Watch it. Watch it. That's all I'm going to say. Last thing we're going to do before I get you out of here is we're going to finish off where we started, college football, right? LSU. I talked about LSU, that they're going to be a problem. Look, a lot of people think they're going to win the SEC West, come out and be the victors of the SEC West. And I can't doubt that. LSU always, pretty much for the most part, put together, a talented team every year. Now, sometimes they have little hiccups here and there, but whatever. This year, people got some real, high expectations for LSU. So LSU, let me go back. Mason Smith, I think he's a junior now, defensive lineman for them. He's not going to be able to play this upcoming week due to a pre-NIL infraction, right? So let me tell you the story real quick. Reportedly, he did some autograph signing, and it was before the NIL had kicked in. So the NCAA investigated. They had some findings. They said, hey, Mason cooperated with them and everything. Hey, there's this violation, here. So what we're going to have to do, we're going to have to suspend you a game, for it. So Mason's going to have to, serve that game. Mason gets injured, though. So he gets injured. So he could have served it last year, but because he didn't serve it last year due to injury, they're going to give it to him the first game this year. Well, LSU plays Florida State, and they really, want Mason, for that game. And they start absolving all of these, options to try and have him play this game. They're trying to pick the game that they want him to play. And then it was reported, I didn't even know this was possible, that you could play a week 0 game, they said. A week 0. They were trying to schedule a week 0 team. So then he could serve that 1-game suspension, but then he would be ready for the Florida State. Now, I get it. I get it. You got a big game. But I guess what I'm worried about is just kind of what precedent does that set then, is that, what? Because they could just be like, that infraction they got Mason for, that's BS, man. And they're trying to circumvent it. But this is about, you want him for this game against Florida State. Obviously, he wants to play against Florida State. That's not up for debate. But when you do things like that, what does it set? Does it give a bad optic to be like, what we'll do? And I talked about this as far as like, it's a big joke for if a kid, makes a mistake and they do something. It's just like, all right, hey, because you made this mistake, you gotta, you gotta serve, you gotta pay a penalty or whatever. You gotta serve a suspension, and then they suspend them for, the first two offensive plays of a game, or defensive, series of a game, a first half, and then they can play the second half. I'm like, bro, I don't think this is helping. And I'm not saying that the suspension would change, like Mason would say, oh, I'm not going to do this or that again, or nothing like that. Because I said he cooperated with it. So I think, that in itself is something different. I'm just more talking about the school trying to make all these arrangements so that he can play, because they want to win this game against Florida State. So you out here making business moves. I told you I was going to stay away from it, but I'm right back to it. If you're making business moves, why can't the kids make business moves too?
Indeed.
Right, Lopan. Why can't they do business moves too? That's all I'm saying. So when you start getting ready to look at, some of the things that happen and some of the stuff that transpires and everything, make sure you look at the schools as well, and you point out, to the schools what they're doing, and just saying, hey, you know what? It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. Yes, you want him to play that game, but it's unfortunate. He's going to have to serve that 1-game suspension, and you guys are really just going to have to play, without him. That's all I'm saying. Right? So, Lopan, get us out of here. So, ladies and gentlemen, the Wait a Minute Sports Show. We're going to go ahead and get up out of here, man. Holla at y'all later. Look, enjoy college football. Preseason just finished up in the NFL. So, next week, it's Labor Day. I'll be coming over to some of y'all houses to eat y'all food. And then after that, we're going to have week 1 of the NFL season, where my Detroit Lions is going to be kicking it off against the Kansas City Chiefs, man, against the champs, man. We got a problem on our hands. Pat Mahomes is a problem. So y'all be good. Y'all be safe out there. I'll holler at y'all later, man. And at all the way, 2 things. Stay positive and push forward. And I'll holler at you later. Lopan, let's go.